And we're live. Welcome to yet another PCS Impact Q&A. I'm your host, MJ Boyce. I'm the Director of Community Outreach at PCS Grades. Boom. With me, as always, is the lovely Megan Harless, our resident PCS Reform Advocate, and oh, by the way, resident BA, censored for little ears in your room because we love you. We have a great show today. We have a lot of questions about things, all things insurance. You know, is stuff covered? When our household goods shipments are they damaged? Like, what happens? Where do we go? Do we go file a claim with the military? Do we file a claim with our insurance? Is anything even covered? Are all insurance policies created equal? We're going to answer all that and more in just a few minutes and get to those DoD updates. But before we do and introduce our guest, I'm going to go ahead and give those housekeeping items as I do every week. Here we go. So first and foremost, we bring the experts to you. We bring the experts to you because they are the source, from transportation command to education experts to movers to military spouses turned movers to insurance industry professionals. We bring these experts to you because they are the source. We have the answers. They have the answers. If none of us have the answers, we know who does. And if we don't know either of those things, guess what? We're going to take your questions for action. And we're going to get back to you with an answer. Speaking of questions, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, LOL, smiley faces, shout outs for us over here, go ahead and leave them in the comment box. And you could be entered to win in our Wheel of Names at the end of our broadcast for a Hope Design Limited necklace. Yes, yes, yes. We all love some bling. Let's see what else. Okay. Oh, yes, we bring the experts to you, and we do have the answers. But sometimes you and your military family are going to have some specific issues that are specific to you and your local area and your military family specifically. Now, that being said, there are two forever and always resources for your specific military family situation. Number one, your local chain of command. Number two, your local transportation office. Those are the people who know you. Those are the people who are dealing with your stuff. Those are the people who can help take your issues and further them for action. Last but not least, we have to do our part, people. We have got to flatten the curve. We have got to flatten this curve. Oh my gosh, wear your mask, social distance, stay home, whatever it takes. If you're lonely, email me. I will hit you up and we will have a conversation because nobody should be alone, but stay home, whatever it takes, because we need to flatten that curve, because when we do, we're going to flatten Murphy with it. Do you hear us, Murphy? We are coming for you. Okay. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Megan for some DoD updates. Megan?
Hey, everybody. So just a couple of updates for you this week. The first thing is that if you are shipping a vehicle with the military at any time this week and you are planning to either drop it off or pick it up on either December 24th or the 25th, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, all VPC's vehicle processing centers are going to be closed. Historically, in the past, they have been open on Christmas Eve. This year, they will not. So you need to go ahead and start making your plans accordingly to either pick your vehicle up or drop it off before or after the Christmas holiday. The second thing I want to let you know is that we're starting to see people come out with orders for PCSing in January or PCSing next summer. Go ahead and right now get on DPS, which you access through move.mil, and set up your move. It's always important to get your move set up as soon as possible, because it gives the military time to contract your move out to a company. It gives that company time to plan your move, to properly staff your move, so they're not jumping through hoops to try to squeeze you in somewhere. You do not need an address when you set up your move. You can set it up without an address. Just put in the duty location that you're going to, so your shipment can be planned going to the location that you're at least being stationed at. If you need to shift your dates around, you can do that at a later time as well. You can always have that conversation with your move coordinator, with your TSP, and say, hey, we need to shift our dates, the week before, the week after. That's always something you can adjust on the back end as well as you get closer to your move. But right away, as soon as you get your hard orders, get on DPS, get your move set up, so that way your company can be able to plan well for your move. So that's all I've got for now. Send it back to you, MJ.
Awesome. And thank you for those updates. This is why we love Megan, because she knows the policies and she goes down the rabbit hole, not just over DOD wide, not just Army, because that's who she is, right? Okay. But she goes down the rabbit hole for every service, because everything is different with every service sometimes. But she loves you guys, and she wants to impart that policy knowledge on you and drop it like it's hot, and that's what she does. We love her for it. Now, on to the next business. I'd like to introduce to you Bryce Palmer, the Assistant Vice President of Affinity Partnerships at Armed Forces Insurance. He is going to hook us up with some awesome knowledge as far as what we can do when it comes to PCSing and what we're covered for and what to do and what types of situations. So before we go down those questions, we're going to go ahead and give him a chance to introduce himself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Bryce.
There we go. First, I got to figure out how this mute unmute button works, but I've got it. So my name is Bryce Palmer. I am the Assistant Vice President of Affinity Programs here at Armed Forces Insurance. So what I do, or what a little bit about me, I guess, is I've been in the insurance industry, 10 to 12 years now. I've done a number of roles here. I've done sales, I've done service, I've done more sales. I've worked for big banks. I've even sold health insurance on my own. And then I ended up here at Armed Forces Insurance here about 5 years ago. Chance, I've spoken to some of you out in the audience, either on the phone or manning different booths and being at different events, whether, across the country at different organizations. Ultimately ended up in this, a lot of community outreach, work with partners, work with different groups to get our message out about Armed Forces Insurance, but more importantly, get education out to all of you and, come on webinars like this, talk to folks at different places and just try to educate them and get you guys the information that you need, because a move is difficult. A PCS move can be even more difficult. So want to make sure you guys have all the tools at your disposal. I've also got 3 kids at home, girls, and one is her 12th birthday. So I know she's not watching, but I'm still going to say happy birthday to Addison as she turns 12 today.
Oh, happy birthday to Addison. Yes. And you know what? You can just replay this for her later and be like, I was thinking about you even then. And then you get awesome dad points.
Right, absolutely, because I kind of left the house today without saying happy birthday. So
okay. So just FYI, Dad made a boo-boo, but he's fixing it because now you're famous, Addison. Yay! Happy birthday! Okay, so let's just go ahead and dive right into some questions. And just for the record, everybody out there today, I'm dual handing a little bit because Stacy, who is our back end awesome community outreach manager, is out for the day. So I get to do both things. So I apologize now for anything that happens, but we like it because it's funny. So screw you, Murphy. All right, let's get down to business and let's talk insurance, because I know a lot of people, they don't think about insurance, and let's just keep it simple. Let's just go straight for the jugular. Why is it important for someone to have insurance on their stuff?
That's a good question. It's the bottom line. It's peace of mind. It's knowing that your items are going to be protected against life's most unexpected moments. We're going to go through our days, and 99.9% of them are going to be what they are. You're going to get up, you're going to go to work, you're going to take care of the kids, you're going to eat, you're going to do all that. It's pretty mundane, and nobody expects the bad to happen. But what if that hurricane comes? What if that fire happens? Tornado? The list goes on and on and on. So it's that peace of mind or that safety net to know that if you come home and there's fire trucks out in front of your house and there's something that resembles your house, but it's in charred ruins, that you don't have to worry about where you're going to come up with the money for your personal property. You don't have to come up with the money if you're homeowners about how you're going to rebuild the house, because guess what? The bank doesn't care. They still want their money. Your kids still need clothes. You still need food. So where does that come from? So it's that safety net. And above all, how's home insurance, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit here. That's going to be required if you own a home, if you have a mortgage, but renter's insurance sometimes isn't. Personal property insurance sometimes isn't. But the thing is, with that side of it, the renters and personal property, it's not very expensive, no matter where you look, no matter what you choose to do. So just having that peace of mind in place to know that if the worst, one of the worst things in your life happens, you don't have to worry about it as much because you're covered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, you kind of mentioned homeowners versus renters. Like, what kind of is the difference between a renter's insurance policy, a homeowner's insurance, and then just sometimes you hear about having a personal property policy, on specific things. So what's kind of the difference between those things?
So I'm gonna segment it out. I'm gonna talk homeowners briefly first, because it's probably the most expansive of the two, and that's because a home insurance policy is going to be there to cover your home in the event any of those things happen: fire, tornado, hurricane, on down the line. It also, though, doesn't just cover your home. It covers your personal property. It covers your liability. So maybe your dog or your kid bites somebody, or maybe somebody comes onto your property and injures themselves. It's there to protect you in a number of ways. So the home, the personal property, the liability. It even provides money for you to live if you come home and your house has been destroyed. So you come home, the tornado's taken the house or the fire, and where are you going to stay? Or you had a kitchen fire and there's going to be workers in there for 2 weeks. You're not going to want to live around that. Where are you going to stay? There is money on a home policy to help you with that answer. Go find a hotel. Go find a short-term rental, whatever the case may be. It's there to kind of make sure your life remains as whole as possible until everything gets fixed. Now, a renter's policy and a personal property policy are often kind of considered the same thing, but there is a slight difference. So I'll take renters first. Renters is like the home policy, except they kick off all the home stuff, the dwelling. You don't need to cover the home. That's not your responsibility as a renter, whether you're on base or you're renting down the street in an apartment or a home. That's the responsibility of who owns the home if a fire occurs or a tornado. Now, you are responsible for the upkeep, and that's a separate deal, but I'm talking for those big events. Or upkeep, I mean like maintenance, making sure mowing the yard, I'm sure, making sure that you keep the place clean. I'm talking fires and thefts and tornadoes and things like that. The renter's insurance is going to knock off the home stuff, but keep the personal property, keep the additional living if you have to live elsewhere, if your apartment complex is damaged or your home is damaged. And it's going to keep the liability, again, if something happens to somebody, again, that kid or that dog gets crazy and things just happen in life. Where a personal property differs, and this is where our company, Armed Forces Insurance, has a lot of flexibility. Most companies out there just offer a straight renter's package. You get the personal property, you get the liability. Here it is in a nice bundle. Have a great day. And that's a great product. There's nothing wrong with that. We have the option to do just a straight personal property policy. So we'll actually kick off the liability if it's not needed, and just get down to, the basics. We're going to cover your personal property at $70,000 or $50,000, and this is your deductible. And the reason we offer that is it provides flexibility. There's many families that we've run into, military families, where there's, the military spouse is getting deployed overseas. And so the homemaker, the person who stays at home, is going to move in with family. Well, the personal property that they take with them into their family's home, let's say mom and dad's, is going to be covered under mom and dad's policy. While the spouse is away, they're going to be, living in barracks or quarters at the military, whatever they're deployed, they're forward deployed at. And there's not really a lot of need for liability coverage there. So who covers the item? And the personal property is going to be covered, so they'll have a limited amount there, but most of that goes into storage. So let's say you're selling your house, it's going into storage, or you're just moving out of your apartment. That stuff that goes into storage does need coverage because it won't be covered by anything else. And that's where we can do is our personal property policy, or a personal property policy. We'll cover that in storage and any items that are taken overseas on deployment. Oh, Megan, you're muted.
You're muted.
What is going on today, y'all?
Murphy, back off, man. We're done.
Apparently, I'm muted every 5 minutes here. So follow up to that, these policies, are they kind of blanket policies to cover every little thing, every paperclip to expensive item, or do people need to have like specific, like their antiques or valuable things listed in these policies to ensure that they are covered?
That's a great question. Every renter or personal property policy that I've come across has a limitation on it.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll say the basic household goods. And what I mean by basic household goods are anything that you're loading up into that moving van or anything that's going on those boxes and are heading out is generally covered under a personal property or a renter's policy. So your couches, TVs, paper clips, as you mentioned, your sock drawer, all of that's going to fall under the household goods. What you want to really be careful of is your higher end value items, the unique items. And those are going to be things like jewelry. if anybody still has like real silverware, not just silverware, but like true real silverware,
You mean
you
not
gotta
the
polish.
plastic forks
No.
and spoons or sporks? Like those
No.
don't count?
Those
Not our
sporks,
ones from Walmart.
no, sporks I enjoy, and I think there's a value to them. I mean, it's a fork and a spoon, but it's not something we're going to list on a special policy or that needs to be covered special. But antiques you mentioned, camera equipment, especially expensive camera equipment. I'm trying to think. Firearms for many military families, they have a lot of firearms, and there are limitations on the policy against theft. There are limitations on the policy if they're there's certain dollar amount limitations on there, and each policy is a little different. Generally, it starts at $1,500. So if you have a piece of jewelry or an antique that's valued more than $1,500, or a firearm or a bunch of firearms valued more than $1,500, you're gonna want to talk to your company or find a company that covers more. But you're probably going to want to look to putting those on what's called a special schedule, or what we call a valuable items policy, which is just a separate policy that we cover those items for what you tell us. So if you tell us you've got, one firearm valued at $800, and you've got, or maybe I'll say $1,000, and you've got a ring valued at $3,000 and an antique valued at $2,500, we're going to list those on the policy, and that's what they're covered for. So it's an extra policy that covers for everything the renters or the personal property policy will cover, and even more. It's a very extensive policy. It doesn't cost very much, but it's smart to have on those high ticket items.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I didn't even realize. See, I always learn something on here, and I remember a couple months ago we were talking about high value items that we have to list, on when we're moving, and I was like, yeah, what about my husband's vintage video games, because that's a thing. And
it is.
Like, for real, like that should be listed as high value. You should look into getting different types of insurance for it. And I never would have thought about it because they're video games, man. Like that's like, I mean, come on. It's Mario Brothers. What the hell? You know what I mean?
What's old is new, and what's new is old. And yeah, those things have turned into antiques. Those things are big dollar, they're big value. Some of them are worth more than they were when I was a 12-year-old kid buying them with my paper money, or my, delivering who delivers papers anymore? But it, that's what it is it's designed for those items that you can't readily replace, or there's just a specific value, artwork, furs, jewelry, watches, the list goes on, coin collections, stamp collections, baseball card collections. I know those aren't as big a thing anymore, but they're out there.
Yeah, no. Well, by the way, I'm a coin collector, FYI. We're called numismatists. Okay?
There we go.
So Ainara, Farina has a question. Do you need to have proof or receipts for these items?
That's a great question. The answer is no, but they will at time of loss require you to write down an inventory. So does anybody expect you to keep the receipts for every sock, every pair of pants, every shirt that you own or have? No. Getting into the higher value items, you may need to have a appraisal, and it's smart to have an appraisal every so often on those. So if you have that, that is definitely recommended that you have. But as far as the other items, your household good items, you don't need to necessarily keep receipts, but I would keep a list or an inventory of everything that you have, or at least a rough inventory. So your high ticket items, which would be your TVs, your appliances, gaming consoles, computers, even couches on down the line, make sure you keep track of those. Simple story here. About 10 years ago, was living in a townhome and came home. Someone went through the second floor and got into my house. And we walked in, and the TV was gone. The computer was gone. The every electronic in the house was gone.
Wow.
Well, I move a lot. Now I'm going to admit, not a military family. I'm not in the military, but I just moved around a lot. So we kept boxes for everything. We were able to go down and actually grab serial numbers off the boxes. And within 24 hours, they actually caught the people who were trying to pawn the items at a pawn shop up the road. So it allowed us to get most of the stuff back. Now, that being said, we just happen to have that lying around. For those who don't have that, because not everybody's married to my wife, she
Shout out.
You're so careful what you are, and that she kept those boxes, and that they actually came in handy, when you needed that.
Well, and for families that move a lot, it is smart because it's easy to pop a TV right back in the box with the same protection and you go. So some of you may have that out there, but if not, keep a list. Or even more simple, just take pictures of the rooms in your house. That's super simple. You can, it stores on the phone, it stores in the cloud. So if your phone goes up or dies, most of that's stored on the cloud, either with Amazon or Google or some service or Apple. Snap pictures of your house, because I can tell you this: when you sit down with the inspector or the detective, or you sit down with even just your family trying to figure out what you have in your house, you are going to miss things. We did. I know things that I missed on that day that things were stolen. So you're going to miss it. If you snap pictures, it'll help you remember, oh yeah, we had that couch. Oh yeah, we had that TV. Oh yeah, we had this things. And then you have visual proof as well that you can show that say, no, really, I did have 14 TVs. And you got pictures of 14 TVs. And
that's so important. We talk about it a lot on here and in the groups about how important it is for families to have their own inventory of what they have, for those instances of when something is missing, that box doesn't show up, what was in it, you kind of know what it was. And then also, just as we're talking about video games and electronics, so because we saw this recently in the group, that if you have a Nintendo Switch and some reason disappears, goes lost, stolen, whatever it may be, if you have the serial number, you can call Nintendo and they can find out when it was last plugged in and uploaded, and they can help you shut it off. Also, if you have parental settings set on it, is that you can go in and you can change the playtime down to 0 minutes. So whoever tries to steal it and plug it in, they really can't play it because you set parental controls on it. So our technology has gotten a lot better with our video games. So in those instances, you might be able to recoup them a little bit quicker, a little bit better, find out where it is that they disappeared to. But yeah, inventories are so important that, now it's not just me repeating it and saying it, but now we have insurance professionals saying, have your own inventory as well.
Well, it just stops getting questioned, not question at claims. A claims representative of any insurance company is there to help bring you whole, to help you pay those claims. But if you have a list, it goes a lot further than if you're just like, oh, I had this or I had that. You have it, it's there, there's no questions, and the process just goes smoother for you to get everything replaced in your house and get that check in your hand so you can take care of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
One of our biggest worries, like across the board, we're always worried about our stuff. You've heard the horror stories. Everybody's heard the horror stories, okay? So most of us are concerned about our household goods when it comes time to move. Do the general run-of-the-mill policies that AFI has cover household goods in transit, or do they need to add anything specific to it? And the reason I ask that is because we've had a lot, and I mean a ton, of spouses in the last year or two with any type of insurance. They'll name them all, where they get caught in a situation where their stuff is either lost or damaged in transit, and they are told, sorry, we can't cover that for this reason or this reason. And they didn't know because they didn't look at their policy before, to make sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's always a basic renter's policy or a personal property policy that we start with. I always made it a habit when I sold to make sure that all of the families I worked with had everything that they would need to get them through this, because at some point, any insurance policy with any company is going to say, whoa, we can't cover that. So the important thing, especially for military families and especially for military families who are PCSing, is find the policy that has the least amount of, we're not going to cover that. Every policy has a limitation. So with our policies, and our agents their goal is to not only sell, of course they're here to sell you a policy. We got to keep the lights on, but their goal is to educate. They are first and foremost going to say, hey, what do you have? What's your situation? This is what we feel is best, and here's the reasons why. We're going to educate you on those things. So when it comes to a military move, there's a couple things that just are not going to be covered, and one is going to be rough handling by the mover. Once you give those items to the mover, and if that mover drops it, breaks it, throws it, kicks it, whatever, unfortunately, that's something that if it ties back to them, that any insurance company, and ours included, is going to say, nope, that's their responsibility to cover, not ours. It's just going to be excluded from the policy. But so with that, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, because I believe you know this more. I was trying to do some research on it, and I ran into some good information, but not the best. I know with a move that the military families, there is coverage with the DoD move up to, I believe, $50,000 of coverage to help with those. Is that correct or not?
75.
So it's gone up since I last saw.
Yes.
So I think the info I was looking at was 2016, so I'm not surprised it went up. Yeah. So the good news is there is that safety blanket if something were to occur. But we've seen, well, personally, I think people undervalue what they have. Everybody buys their items on sale. Like right now, it's the holiday sale. So I mean, I just bought a dining room set half off, or at least it was supposedly half off. But everybody's buying things, and it's all on deals. But guess what happens when that fire occurs? There's no deals. There might be some, but it's not going to be at your convenience. So you got to be able to buy that stuff back. So people underestimate what they have, or they think, oh, my stuff is old. Well, guess what? With most renter's insurance policies or personal property, you get it at replacement cost. So you get a 10-year-old TV, you get a brand new TV. And that's to make sure, that's one thing, make sure you have replacement cost on your policies. Just have it done. It's non-negotiable.
Write it down, people. Write it down.
You must have replacement cost. If anyone offers you doesn't offer that to you, run. That's all I'll say. Mm-hmm. So have that on there so you can get your TV, your 10-year-old Samsung, make it a new Samsung. That's what it's there for. Where was I going with this? Oh, in transit. Let's say, though, that you have more than $75,000, and let's take the rough handling out of it. I've heard of incidences. Some of you have heard it. Some of you on here may have experienced it. The truck caught on fire. A tornado knocked into the truck. Our stuff was in storage and a hurricane came up. Our stuff was in storage and something that would be covered on your policy occurs to your personal property, and $75,000 isn't enough, or you're having trouble. Those items are covered perils under your policy. Now, I'm going to be very specific. At Armed Forces Insurance, our personal property policy will cover your items worldwide. An address in our system for your personal property is just that. It is an address where we send mail. So you could have things in 3 different storage units strung across 3 different states, and then personal property in another country, and we're going to cover it all. Not every insurance company out there will do that. Mm-hmm. Some have very specific limitations to location, where the address on that policy means that's where it's covered, and anything outside of that address, it's not. So the minute it goes on the truck and that fire occurs, that other company might say there's no coverage. We would cover that in that event because it's worldwide. We don't care where it's at. So it's just going to come down to the exclusions of the policy, which is rough handling by the packer, was really the big one. What happens if rough handling occurs? That, unfortunately, is going to be hard pressed for anybody to cover.
Okay, so here's the thing. Well, just to follow up on that, if I want, like you said, you should absolutely be adding, the depreciation or the replacement cost. We add replacement cost. Boom. End of discussion. Is there any, if I wanted to just really go big or go home, man, and I wanted to get every possible protection known to man, is there anything that I could purchase and pay a premium for, have a higher deductible or whatever to protect my stuff if I'm really just want it all?
Yes. Well, short of the rough handling, there's going to be always things that are limited. But I did, it was in my head to start with, and I got sidetracked, which happens a lot in this pea brain up here. With our policies, we have endorsements that we put on there that extend coverage and include, like I was talking earlier, you have coverages that cover here and then others that expand that out to the most possible, which for military families, it's extremely important. We have an endorsement. There's several, but the one I'm going to highlight is our comprehensive coverage endorsement. And what that does is it removes almost every exclusion that is on a regular renter policy, and it turns it into where it's going to cover for earthquake. Most policies don't. It's going to cover for flood damage. Most policies will exclude that. It's going to cover for breakage. Now, again, if the breakage is caused by the mover, not covered. But if the breakage is not caused by the mover, it's covered. So, for instance, you're getting ready to move and you grab your 85-inch Samsung QLED TV off the wall, and you and your buddy are moving it, and whoopsie, it drops.
No, sorry. He really loves Samsung. Just
that was a very specific
shout
TV.
I should be plugging Samsung, or Samsung should send me a check. One of the two. Either way, maybe I need to. This is a good moneymaker for me. But
side gig, moonlight.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, any TV you have, I don't care what it is, LG, Samsung, don't matter, and you drop it under our comprehensive policy, that's covered. It is not covered under most other companies' policies. Mm-hmm. Also, our policy will cover mysterious disappearance under the comprehensive policy.
Define mysterious.
Let me give you an example.
It just walked through legs and walked away.
This 100%. So it is the true, I don't know what happened. Most renters' policies, if there is a theft, oh, my stuff is gone, has to have a time and place where it occurred, meaning there was a break-in, there's a police report, here it is, give it to the insurance company. With mysterious disappearance coverage, which is rare, and again, it's under our comprehensive policy. The real-world example is this. I know of a family who loaded up a sectional couch during a PCS move, and off it went. Everything arrived at the house except half of the sectional couch. There were sections of the couch missing. Where did they go? Nobody knows. To this day, I think it's a mystery. I'm not 100% sure if they ever found out. It's a mystery. That would be covered. Nobody knows. There's no report. Nobody can point to a time and date that somebody broke into something. It's just gone. And that's covered. So, and that's similar coverage on that VIP policy for jewelry I was talking about. You have a ring covered and the diamond falls out. Mysterious disappearance, don't know where the diamond went. They'll actually fix that on that policy. So that's the type of coverage we have on our comprehensive. I've been doing this, like I said, 10 or 12 years. I've sold 20 plus different companies of insurance. I have yet to find a company out there that has as broad a coverage. There's a couple that are close, but there's ours I've yet to find, and someone can send me one. That's great. I'd love to take a look at it, but I've yet to find a company that has as broad a coverage as we do. I mean, we've got a little more on that department. So it's an excellent policy, but it does cover almost every what if scenario when it comes to where'd my stuff go, or the packing, or the PCS move, except for the rough handling and packing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So a lot of families, when they move from, usually it happens overseas or moving from one climate to another climate, mold is usually a big concern for our shipments and our household goods. Is mold generally something that is covered under a policy, or is that like something specific we need to ask our company to add on and make sure it's written in our policy and pay the extra for it?
Here's the part, and this is the other part I was going to talk about, but I get long-winded. Here's the other part nobody's going to like me, and nobody's going to like my answer on.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, mold, just like rough handling and packaging, mold is generally that excluded item as well. Now, I say generally because there is an exception I'll get to in a second, but I think an example would be you load up your items on a container, it goes on the shipping container, heads off overseas, gets to Europe, gets to Hawaii, or Hawaii, I guess, is in the United States, but it heads out on the ocean, lands in your location, and you open it up and the mold monster hit. I don't know of one, and again, if somebody can send me one, I'd be happy to look at it because I'd love to see what the details are on it, but I don't know of a policy out there that will cover that type of mold damage. It's just something that companies run far and wide from. The time mold is covered would be if a covered claim occurs and mold is a result of that claim. So let's say there is a storm that damages whatever your personal property is in or your house. Rain comes in, the rain soaks, it gets moldy and musky. That would be covered.
Okay.
Or let's say there's a fire and the fire trucks come and they blow water everywhere, and that damages the personal property. It was because of the fire that occurred, mold would be covered. But if you just open up and mold just happened and there's no cause, it goes back to that there has to be a specific cause. And unfortunately, I have yet to find anything anywhere that covers that, because believe me, I'd love to bring this here and say, hey, we don't cover it, but call this 800 number and your problems are solved. I just have yet to find that.
Okay. No, that makes total sense. And so I guess, for families, sometimes, the shipments that get stored in a location where there's a hurricane, and so essentially damage that happens from the hurricane that results in mold, that is covered.
Yeah. So again, you're living in Savannah, Georgia. Mandatory evacuation occurs. Hurricane comes through, damages your property. It's 2-3 weeks before you can get back there because power lines are down, infrastructure's down. You can't get back there, and you get back to a mess. And I'm sure there's families on here who have experienced that. And if they haven't, I hope you never do. It's terrifying, but you get back and there's mold and that and the other. It was all came from that event, which was the hurricane. A hurricane's covered on the policy. Therefore, that's where the damage came from.
No, that makes good sense.
Okay, so and just on that respect, so Megan, from the PCS, from the DTR, from all of that standpoint, from the policy standpoint, and as far as PCSing goes, in the event that this occurs, I'm going to pose that same question to you. If there's mold all over the place, our insurance cannot cover it. There is no insurance company that will. What do we do? What's our recourse as a military family?
So you still file the claim as that stuff, that those items being damaged in your move. You file the claim with the TSP, the transportation service provider, who is your moving company. You file all that claim through DPS, your moving company. So whenever mold is discovered in your shipment, unpacking, unloading should stop, and everything should be taken out of your home and taken back to the warehouse. So that way it doesn't become a health hazard or issue to you and your home. So at the warehouse, then they should call in a remediation company. ServPro is usually the big one that gets used, but they call in that company and they come in and they sort through your stuff for you, and they kind of sort it into different piles. There'll be one pile where the stuff is free and clear, no mold issue, no mold damage, nothing seen there. It's stuff that can be delivered back to your home. They'll do another pile of stuff that is salvageable, stuff that, once it goes through remediation and proper cleaning, it'll get rid of the mold, it'll be good. So that will be another pile. There'll also be a third pile that's called unsalvageable, that, no matter if they can clean it, it's just not going to restore those items. Usually you see that with like pictures, books, sometimes those things that just, if you clean them, you're not going to be able to read it. It's not going to be usable. So you'll have that third pile. So the stuff that is salvageable and unsalvageable, you should receive a list as to exactly what those items are, so you know where your property is going to. The stuff that's unsalvageable, you continue with your claim on them. Start, finding out the documentation that you need for the value of them, searching your Amazon purchase history or whatever it may be to get that value and start that claim on it. The stuff that is salvageable, they'll go through the process. They'll work on salvaging the items. They'll bring those items back to you. Some things, get kind of iffy. My concerns always are beds. You can't really see in the middle of a mattress. How do I really know that mattress is good and clean and that mold isn't going to reappear in a couple of weeks? And then, you tell me it's not your problem because we settled the claim. So some things like, your mattresses, your box springs, your couches, depending on what the fabric is. I always say, if your company will let you go ahead and deny those things off the bat, go ahead and deny them from being remediated, save them the hassle of that, and go ahead and claim them as a loss. Now keep in mind that depending on how much the remediation is, depending on how much mold damage you may have, if it's one item, it may not be a big deal, but if it's a catastrophic loss for like your entire shipment covered in mold, the $75,000 also includes remediation costs. So that's where, having your private insurance company renter's policy is going to come in hand to be able to, help you replenish the stuff that's in your home.
And it's funny that you say that, because that's a great segue. I think you almost did it on purpose, but you didn't. That's okay. So All right. And that's just FYI. They just tag teamed that question from a policy standpoint for PCS policy and from an insurance standpoint. So now, if you know anybody who's having any issues with mold, with the moves, or anything like that, you throw them back to this webinar. It will be on our Facebook page, and you show them what's up. Help your fellow mill spouse and mill fans out. Okay. So, Bryce, Megan was talking about catastrophic loss. So there are those times where when a catastrophic loss happens during a move, and it's awful. How does your own renter's insurance kind of come into play when filing a claim with the moving company and them not covering everything? Does that make sense?
Right. So basically, there'll be a number of things there. I mean, again, any insurance company is there to do what is stated in the policy, which is protect you from said covered claims in the policy. So that's why I always say get the most that you can. The price is not that much more to add that on, which is why every policy I sold had the most amount of coverage you could have, because I didn't get any extra out of it. I just knew you had peace of mind and you'd thank me later if you had that claim. But having that on there, so let's say you're having trouble, let's say that you only get partial, but it was a covered loss. It was due to a fire, hurricane, tornado, something that was not excluded. Your policy is going to cover up to its policy limit. Now, what can happen is in certain instances, and this happens a lot in auto insurance, some in home, where sometimes we'll pay a policy, and this is up to the claims department. I'm speaking for them, but I'm not speaking for them. I'm just speaking for insurance in general. A lot of times insurance companies will pay and then say, hey, that company over there is the one who's supposed to pay first. So they're going to go and call up that company and say, this is so-and-so from the subrogate they call subrogation. And they're going to go back to that company and say, hey, you guys need to pay up on this because you were the first party responsible. So a lot of cases, I say we work on your behalf, but we really work on our behalf to recoup money that was paid out to you to get that back in. And then what that does is open up, hey, you have a $75,000 policy with us. You had 75 with them. We're going to pay up to this amount, try to get that back. And that keeps that amount of money there for you for that covered loss. Mm-hmm. But yeah, again, generally what we'll cover is let them pay first, and then we come in and kick in what's left over. But if that doesn't happen, again, it's covered. You have up to the policy limit, and then we'll try to subrogate back against those who we need to, who are responsible for, I guess we'll say.
Okay.
And I want to say for the military process side of things, to remind you folks, it's $6 per pound up to $75,000. So for some reason, your shipment is only 10,000 pounds. You're only going to be covered up to $60,000 from the liability claims with your move company. If you have 20,000 pounds, it's only liable up to 75,000, even though the $6 per pound may go above that. So it's important to know exactly what you're being covered under and what your policy, your private insurance, renter's insurance will cover on top of that. And the same thing kind of goes through with the move process too. How Bryce here said, they kind of go and recoup some of that money. Your TSP kind of does the same thing. So when you file the claim with them, they go back later and they figure out, did that damage or loss happen from your driver in transit? Did it happen from a poor packing job? And they go back and recoup the costs from them. So it's kind of like that trickle down effect of, John's going to get paid, it's just, we're going to figure out who really is responsible and make sure it's not all coming out of my pocket for it. So we talked some about inventories earlier. Mm-hmm. So is there anything other than having a good inventory of your own that families can do before they move to, one, protect their property, and two, to ensure in the event of that they have to file a claim that things will go smoothly for them?
Yes. So inventory by far and away. I don't want to beat that, I don't want to keep on that, but yes, keep an inventory. It's painful to put together at first, but it is going to be so worth it later on down the road, if you ever need it. The other thing to make sure is before any move. So if you're sitting there not insured right now, let's say you're sitting in base housing and you thought renter's insurance was covered, it wasn't required, and you didn't sign anything, and you're getting ready to PCS move, the minute you hand your items over, it's too late to add extra insurance. It is too late at that point to call somebody and go, hey, I need my stuff covered. Any insurance company is going to go, sorry, it's in their custody. We'll wait till it's done. but we're not going to insure anything in transit because it's too late. The best next thing to do is call your company, whoever you're with, or, call us or whomever, and say, here's my situation. Here's what I have. Where do I need to plug the holes? Because if you find out after something happens, it's too late. But by getting things in place before your move, will make sure that you have at least the most amount of protection you can for your personal property during that PCS move. So call early. You got it coming up in a month or two, call now. Don't wait. Don't forget, because you will. I've seen the checklists for the PCS moves. It's crazy.
And it's only getting added to over time because we keep finding so many ways to let's just think about the pre-paperwork alone that has nothing to do with the actual military move. You got your kids' school stuff, you got doctor stuff, you got, should I change my voter registration? Do I have to update it from my home of record? But right on up with all of that should always be, the second you get hard orders, is take a look at your renter's policy or whatever policy that you have to see what's covered. And if it's not, come up with a plan now.
Yep.
So, I was going to really quick, because while we're kind of talking about, I know we hit on earlier about household goods and transit and what policies mean for that. Can you, because I beat this dead horse a lot and I like you kind of reinforcing the things that I say, Bryce. People that are moving should not cancel their renter's insurance at one location before they move. It's a renter's insurance. I'm renting this house. Like, isn't it just this house? Will it, at my next house that I may be buying, I shouldn't cancel it?
So do not cancel that. And I would even take that as far as, let's say you're a homeowner and you're moving from one location to another, whether that be, you're going from Fort Hood to Fort Carson, or you're going from Hill Air Force Base to Ellsworth Air Force Base, whatever your situation is. Your home policy will give you 30 days from when you leave your house to your next location that'll cover your personal property. If you cancel it on the day that you sell your home, that's it. It's done. It's canceled. It's done. They wash their hands of it. Your renter's policy, and this is where you need to know your limitations. Know who you're with and what their limitations are. Does it cover just the address that's on that document and your personal property? Is there an amount they cover outside of there, or is there, does it cover worldwide? That's why I like our policies. We are a fire and forget company in a sense. If you came into me and said, Bryce, I need a policy, I want to get $75,000 of coverage, I'd say, great. We're going to put the comprehensive coverage. We're going to do this or that. And by the way, it's worldwide coverage. So what that means is this: you forget to call me to change your address. You forget to call me that you're going through, you got hard orders and you're moving, and it's 5 months later and you're in, I don't know, you Savannah, Georgia again. You're in Okinawa, Japan. You're in, Germany. All we do is change your address and go, thank you. That doesn't matter with our policies. Other policies it does. So I got to be very careful for those who have with other companies. Call them. If you have orders, call them and make sure you know what is and what isn't covered. And don't cancel it, because again, you could find yourself without coverage, because your new policy, if it's a state to state policy, will not kick in until you get there or the date you set. And it again could only cover your personal property at that location. So you want to make sure you've got protection through that move.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
That's just super smart. That's just super, there is one thing that, I was speaking actually with Lori about, who is the over at AFI as well. But the things that we kind of talked about was, a lot of times families will say, okay, well, I can't afford that. I don't want to pay that much for a premium. When in actuality, it's only say $5-10 more a month. And if you don't do that, then you end up having this ginormous deductible, to the point where if you would have just, you just have to look at your stuff and define what that value means to you, whether that's sentimental or, whatever, right? So it's not always you got to look past just the price.
You do, and it's generally not terribly expensive for those type of policies. I mean, the more personal property you have, yes, the price will go up, but the bare basic renters policies, and this is without those extra protections, they're probably in that $12 to $15 to $17 range. If you start adding on the extra coverage, and that's per month, if you start adding on the extra coverage, it might get you might get 20 to 21, 19 to 21, $22. Mm-hmm. So we're not talking that much more money for that extra peace of mind of adding that extra, working with companies that work with the military, that understand what you do, that are like, hey, we're going to cover you wherever. We're going to cover for all these things these other companies won't. And it's going to cost you maybe a couple bucks more a month. And that's just for the extra coverage. The regular policies are on par. It's just that extra added endorsement that is just a no-brainer to add. I mean, if you've just ever been through a claim like I have, it's just to not worry about it is such a peace of mind. A theft is very, having someone break in your home is very violating. And just one less thing I had to worry about is how am I going to replace my things? Having a fire can be very unsettling. It's one less thing to worry about, where you're going to eat and where you're going to get clothes for tomorrow. So it's just nice to have that. It's nice to have that safety blanket. And again, for the cost, I can tell you, I spend $20 a month on stuff that's just really not worth anything.
Yeah.
Hi, welcome to Starbucks. How you doing?
I could be 20 in a week.
Oh, I know, right? Andrea had a really good question. So we were, talking about that door to she said that she never cancels her. She just changes the address when she knows the new address. And we never do door to door. Is this the best way? Like, leave the policy with the old address, or should we tell the insurance that we're leaving?
Well, Andrea, it's a great question. I'm assuming you're with a company, either ours or another company that has that worldwide coverage where the personal property is not covered. In that sense, as long as it's worldwide coverage on the policy, or they don't care what your address is at, there's no address restriction, then in my example goes back to, you call 6 months because you forgot, it's fine, we just update it. So it's not such a big deal there. It's for those who are with insurance companies that have that address restriction. That's where it gets sticky. And that's where I know we're in this virtual world where everything's done online and you can jump on and get insurance quotes anywhere. It's absolutely easy to do. There's no secret to that. And those who go through the process, do it online and never talk to anybody, it's super simple, super quick, in your hand, 10 minutes and done. But that's why calling someone who understands, calling a company who knows, like, hey, we need to make sure we look at these variables, you might be missing this, is important. I mean, you can still say no to extra coverage. You can still say no to what they're offering, but at least you'll understand what's there. And so that's important. But if you're with a company, just understand and maybe just call them to make sure that it's worldwide coverage and doesn't have an address restriction, then changing the address is fine. They're not changing it is fine, or at least waiting till you move is okay. It's those who are with those companies that that have that address restriction, and those are generally the companies that don't, shall I say, work with the military and military members. They sell to everybody. Those are the ones that you have more issues with. Gotcha.
For anybody, this is the last question we have before we get onto the wheel and names. For anyone who's getting ready to PCS, what advice, as somebody who represents an insurance company, what advice would you give them, be it from an industry standpoint or from an AFI standpoint? What is the biggest takeaway?
I think we've hit it. One, cover yourself. I mean, and I'm not just saying that because I'm selling insurance. It's just cover yourself. It's not that much money, and it'll just put put most of your worries at ease. But two, the takeaway is again, call your company before you move and make sure that's the biggest thing. Make sure, it's important to know what you're covered for, but a lot of times it's important to know what you're not covered for. And those are the questions we don't ask. So that's what I'd say the big takeaway. And then as well, talk to your friends, talk to people who've been through it before. They're your greatest resource. This community, this military community, especially the spouse community, you are the most resourceful people I've ever met.
You know it.
Yeah. And that's not, I'm not buttering anybody up here. I ain't looking for presents or anything like that. I'm here to tell you that this community is willing to lend a hand, and they are willing to help out, and they're willing to so use them as a resource. What worked, what didn't, what do you know, what can I do better? And that's the other takeaway too. Find out what worked for them.
Okay, and just one last saved round from Andrea. So if it's not worldwide, is there no point of keeping that if it doesn't kick in? I mean,
Oh, that's a good question. So that I'm going to be very careful with how I answer. I would want you to call your company or your agency or your whoever set that policy up for you to find out that if it so there will be an address exclusion, but sometime on some policies where it'll say we will only cover at this address. But in a moving situation, there is sometimes extra verbiage on these policies that say we will cover your personal property like it's at your house for 30 days while it's in transit or till it gets to the next location. So you'll want to make sure that that wording is in there. And I will tell you this, having read insurance contracts, it is the most boring thing you will do in your life is to try to find that. So call your agent, let them do the boring work, let them scratch their head and go, I'll get back to you. So that way you can do it. Now, I'm not saying not read your policy. It's important that you should, but call the company and make sure, because I don't want to say it's not important, have you cancel it and then had it covered. That would be very bad of me to do. So this is the time where I'm going to kind of take a step back and say, you need to call your company and make sure you understand, where does the policy stop and where does it start? Because if it doesn't cover beyond that, once it leaves your house, there's probably no point in keeping it, but I don't know until I see your policy. So sorry, that's kind of a wishy-washy answer.
No, it's really not, because I mean, like, you can't speak to that until you know, like, you don't work for the company. It's specific to them, and sometimes you have to go directly to the source, and that would be her company.
And Andrea, I'll put this further. Andrea, I'm happy to, if you want to call me directly to my direct office number, I'll be happy to take this conversation and take it further. And again, no anything other than we'll just have a educational conversation and try to figure it out for you on a more detailed level. Happy to do that.
Could you go ahead while we're talking?
Sure.
I will go ahead and I will put your number up on the screen if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll here. Yeah, absolutely. 63. I'm going to send it in the thing you showed me earlier.
Okay, got you. Tracking. See, technology is pretty cool.
It is. Yep.
When we get it to be.
and so yeah, and I mean, I would throw out. I mean, our entire team at AFI would be happy to handle that question without like trying to throw anything at you, but I'm not in sales anymore. I'm not doing active sales. So call me, we'll run through it. We can go through the options and, I'll just, no pressure, no nothing, just casual conversation, education. So that is my direct office line.
Bam, just like that. And if you need to go back and do the replay and hit that pause button, that's cool too. You're probably already going, is your phone ringing yet? I bet you we have some Moto people in this audience. I'm not joking.
Oh, I don't doubt it. No, I don't doubt it. I say that and I'm like, oh boy, how many calls am I going to get? But that's all right. I'm happy to talk to all of you. Whatever, whatever questions you have, because the questions we've gone over are, I mean, you all know, you've all been through it. They're common. They keep coming up. And so the more I can get out and talk about it, at least it gives a few more people that, hey, okay, that got answered. And because it's, moving is not fun. And like I said earlier, PCS moving can be just even more, not fun.
Yeah. I just wanted to throw up a couple of thank yous from some peeps. We got Angela. Shout out, Angela. She's one of our regulars and a fellow MSOI. Great information on the differences in insurance. Inara, good information to know and pass to others. We like hearing these because if we help at least one person, at least one each week, I mean, we're stoked. By the way, we got a few shout outs. So that when you come back to the replay, when you show your little girl that you didn't really forget, she got a little bit of love on the webinar. Look at that.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks everyone. That's awesome. Yeah, she's 12. It's
that's fun.
We're hitting you all know.
A little too well. Well, see, okay, so I have older kids, just for the record. My son is 19 and my daughter's 22, just turned 22, and she actually recently had a baby herself, and I am a Mimi. I am no G word. I am a Mimi. So yes, my I'm a Mimi to an awesome little 2-month-old boy who's just cool as heck.
It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I know. And of course, check it. His daddy's in the Air Force. Just got to keep it going, keep it in the family. You know how it works. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in here really quick and pull up the wheel of names. I know I have more in here. Hold on. Okay. I just realized we have a lot of people with the name that starts with A. We have Angela, we have Ainara, we have Andrea. Let's see who else we got.
Like they're all A except for 2, except for Rachel and Marianne.
Yeah. Rochelle and Marianne and Okay. Ready for the wheel of names? Let's do this, y'all. I'm sharing my brain. Please forgive my brain. All 88 tabs of them. All right.
At least you know where the music's coming from now.
You what? Where the music? Oh,
look at that little wheel.
Yes, cute, huh? So it's totally random.
Bum, 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 bum.
Angela!
Congratulations, Angela.
You're actually going to get a really cool grit pearl necklace from Hope Design Limited. And we're actually going to shoot you a t-shirt as well. Boom! Just like that. And let's stop sharing so not everybody has to live in the craziness that is MJ's brain. Well, thank you so much, Bryce. We really, really appreciate you coming on and talking to us and giving us the down and dirty and being able to keep up on this topic and with us.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, because I even learned a couple things that were helpful. That I did some searching just like you all do, and it's some of the information's out there, but some of it's hard to find. It is. So no, I'm glad I could come on and do that. And like I said, I've got some takeaways as well. That was that are like, okay, good. It's good to know that 50 turned into 75,000. I couldn't find that, so I don't know why. I don't know. Agent Google didn't help me out as my friend,
Agent Google ain't got nothing on Megan Harless.
That's right. I guess not.
Love it. So just for the record, audience, if you're seeing this on the back end or on the replay, leave a shout out. Let us know. We have a huge Oconus peeps. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, we're going to stay in touch with Bryce. He's got our back because over at AFI, their mission is you. Literally, that's their mission.
So right there.
Boom. Just like that. I didn't even cheat. How about that? So yeah, we will be in touch. So any questions, comments, or concerns you have, leave them in the comments, and we'll get in touch with him. Megan, as always, of course, we love you. You are a resident PA. Next week will be our last webinar before the end of the holidays, before the holidays, because we actually do have to take time off. I'm pretty sure my daughter would be mad if I did not. But overall, I mean, we're gonna go through next week about PCSing during the holidays because it's a thing and it's happening. So we're going to go talk about that next week, and it'll be our last one until the new year, but we're going to make it big, people. I'm going to have like the Santa hat, and it's going to be like a thing. So if you come bring in your Santa hat, come with some Christmas cheer. No Grinches allowed.
Yes.
All right. And with that, Megan,
this too shall PCS.
bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.